Hi, I'm Lizzie,
And I'm Brenda.
and welcome back to Small Step
Step
Society. This is Season 2, Episode 14, A Lifetime of Learning.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hi!
Hi, welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to start off with another quote, and it goes like this. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. From Mahatma Gandhi. But before we dive into what that quote means and more, we have our weekly segment.
Song of the Moment.
What's your song of the moment?
My song of the moment is called Last Goodbye by Akmu.
Aww.
It's really pretty. It's like they're siblings. It's a brother and a sister, and the brother makes all the songs. And the sister has a voice that's literally unreal. And it's so pretty, and their harmonies are incredible.
Aw.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So pretty. Yes. What's your song of the moment?
My song is Edge of the Earth by The Beaches.
Oh. Is it summery?
No, actually.
No.
But the lyrics are kind of funny. Like the first time I heard the song, I was like, that's funny.
Nice. Funny
So you gotta
song.
listen to it to know what
Yeah.
I'm even talking about, really.
That's true. Yeah, to start off about lifetime learning, when we say lifelong learners, I think we're all technically lifelong learners because we learn something new every single day, whether it be cooking with a new recipe, learning a new song. But I think what we mean is that lifelong learning is self-initiated self-education for personal and professional development. Like the learning is intrinsically motivated to better yourself. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Similarly, Johnson Wales University actually says that lifelong learners are not complacent. They're always seeking new ways to explore novel concepts, pursue new hobbies, and improve themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So even once your days of formal education are complete, it's worthwhile to pursue more knowledge and skills with each passing year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think lifelong learning keeps your life fresh, fun,
For sure.
gives you something to look forward to. And with lifelong learning, there is always something new to be learned.
Believe it or not, lifelong learning has benefits. And this comes from John Coleman from the Harvard Business Review. And the article is called Lifelong Learning is Good for Your Health, Your Wallet, and Your Social Life. So starting with the economic aspect of the benefits of lifelong learning, John Coleman says that ongoing learning and skill development is essential to surviving economic and technological disruption.
Yeah, especially in today's age of AI and tech.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you have to be very self-motivated to learn or you'll just completely fall behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's also a learning curve with figuring out like the balance of AI and quote-unquote regular life or
For sure.
tech and regular life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Innovation's pretty quick these days.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. In fact, in 2014, a CBRE report estimated that 50% of jobs would be redundant by 2025 due to technological innovation.
Oh my goodness, that's so soon.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit, I'm going to be honest here, I think it's a little bit of like a fear-mongering like
Oh, okay.
stat, you know,
Mhm.
trying to catch people's attention. But I guess we'll find out in a year,
Yeah,
not even in like a month.
yeah. I mean, it was supposed to be fear mongering. It kind of worked for me.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there is some sense to that because, but I feel like the narrative you always hear about AI is it's taking away people's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true. I think it's taking away traditional jobs maybe, but there are new jobs that open up where you have to be able to use AI
Yeah.
and kind of fit it to your job
Mhm,
and
that
figuring
makes
out like
sense.
what AI can do for your job.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, there's a lot of lifelong learning there because
Mhm,
you need to
for
keep up with AI trends and figure out how is it relevant to your industry. So
Yeah.
lifelong learning.
And I actually watched the video from the Treehouse channel on this, but they were talking about how because the rapid pace of change in software development and like AI, sometimes like what you learn today can be obsolete the next day. But they were also saying that the time spent learning should not feel like wasted time because by you learning the currently obsolete thing, like it prepared you to learn the next thing, if that makes sense. Like there are skill sets that come with learning a new skill that can be universal and used in other aspects of life. And like the more you learn, the easier learning is. You know what I mean? So even if you no longer are able to use that skill, you still have the skill and you can like use it in other ways too. So
Yeah, I think that reminds me of like the whole concept of instant gratification because so something that is very common in psychology mainly psychology,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of scientific fields is longitudinal studies, which take place over like the lifespan of a person, basically,
Mm-hmm.
or at least for decades. And a lot of times this kind of research doesn't get published or it's never funded because it feels like a waste of time, like
Yeah.
to give it like 40 years to develop and
Right.
find conclusions.
Right.
But throughout that experience, you're learning a lot. It's literally learning through
Yeah.
life, actually. But so I think it's important to consider all the benefits of lifelong learning,
Yeah.
even if it seems that it's not worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. And it like takes a longer time for sure.
Another benefit of lifelong learning is better cognitive function. Lifelong learning leads to a longer attention span, stronger memory, improved reasoning skills, even reduced risk of dementia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's why older people do like crosswords and word searches, and I think a lot of these benefits can come from reading, learning a new instrument, or learning difficult new skills, just constantly having your brain practice new skills. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, this is completely a self-plug, but watching Small Step Society, you're improving your attention span.
True.
Looking at least 30-minute episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also learning,
Yeah.
I think, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing John Coleman mentioned was the personal and professional benefits. He says that those who dedicate themselves to learning and who exhibit curiosity are almost always happier and more socially and professionally engaging than those who don't. And he mentioned an anecdote, a friend of his who is a very avid, like, lifetime learner, and he said the intellectual curiosity and his ability to touch on almost any topic of interest to others and to speak deeply on those that the person already knows best makes it easier to have a conversation with them and is a point of admiration. So that can help you in the personal and professional setting as well, too.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of academic networking events are really networking rather than like just small talk,
Mm-hmm.
because people can connect, especially at these academic events, they can connect in a lot of different topics that aren't, surface level, like you mentioned.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. Building on the personal benefits that John Coleman mentioned, I think with lifelong learning, there is a renewed sense of self. There's renewed self-motivation because learning new skills that interest you puts you back in the driver's seat. It gives you back the control and is a reminder that you can really do things in life that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is the recognition of personal interests and goals. So by reigniting what makes you happy or like finding something that brings you joy, reduces boredom, makes life more interesting, and can even open up to like future opportunities. So you never know where your interests will lead you if you focus on them. That makes sense.
Yeah. That kind of relates to like the whole idea of a midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's why it happens, because you're kind of feeling like you're losing your sense of self, especially in like your
Yeah.
career, for example, or whatever's going on in your life that you've been doing for years and years. And then suddenly you decide, I want to branch out and I want to do this hobby and learn how to do this. And then suddenly you feel like yourself again. So
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense.
That does make a lot of sense.
That's why it's better to just keep learning rather than forgetting about picking up new skills and learning new things, because otherwise you might find yourself in the boat, say 10 years, 20 years down the line.
Yeah. To wrap up the benefits, lifelong learning can also challenge your ideas and beliefs. We all have some ideas and beliefs that are biased, and I feel like if we don't learn new things, we'll never have the opportunity to see different viewpoints and kind of realize your bias and like have a way to like rethink our beliefs and values.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the example a video from the Life Formula channel gave. They said that you might not think mental health is important, but as you start learning about self-development, you learn and realize that mental health is crucial in self-care and self-development. So it's like at one point in your life you had this belief, and then like as you learned, you were like, oh wait, you see the perspectives and you kind of change your originally held belief, if that makes sense.
Yeah. With lifelong learning, there are a couple different types.
Yeah, so we have formal education, which is continuing degrees, certifications, online courses, and there's informal learning, which is books, podcasts, Small Step Society, documentaries, and community discussions. And then the experiential learning, which is the traveling, volunteering, mentorship, internships. And the social learning is the participating in group activities, clubs, or attending seminars.
Yeah, those are some great broad categories of lifelong learning. But here are a few specific ways to embrace lifelong learning that you can take into your life immediately. One, I think, is setting lifelong learning goals.
Mm-hmm.
So think about what you're trying to learn. Is it professional? Is it something that you're going to do through an experience? And if so, how can you get involved in that experience?
Mm-hmm.
Second is setting time aside every day to actually make sure that you can fulfill those learning goals.
Mm-hmm.
Third is having a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we, for example, especially when we're learning a new thing, it can be really challenging to not be good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to give yourself grace, as we always say, and know that you can get better and that where you are right now might not be where you are in a week or 2 months or a year, however long it takes, depending on your goal.
Mm-hmm.
Fourth is learning with other people. It can be really fun and also really rewarding to learn from other people, and learn with other people, actually.
Yeah.
So joining a book club, joining a gardening club, joining a movie club, all sorts of different ways. It doesn't have to be your traditional club that you might find in school,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I guess, one perk of entering adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
is you can kind of make your own community. And
That's true. Yeah.
a few examples of ways that you can embrace lifelong learning, other than those clubs like I just mentioned, is free online courses.
Mm-hmm.
Professionally, LinkedIn Learning. It's great.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned how to do Excel like pivot tables on LinkedIn Learning.
It can be really helpful. And actually, a lot of public libraries have access to that.
Oh,
Fun
that's
fact.
cool.
Another way you can expand your horizons is learning a new language. Duolingo, Babbel, you name it, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't become fluent, because especially as adults, it's a little harder, you can at least pick up a few new skills.
Yeah.
It's a great party trick.
Yeah, I actually do Duolingo every single day. I think I'm on my like 310th day streak or something. But I think there are definitely limitations. Like it's hard to be fluent by learning from Duolingo, but it does a very good job with the lifelong learning like strategies that we mentioned. Like it makes you set aside time every day. So you do a little bit every day, even if it's just a minute, 2 minutes, right? And it gives you learning goals. Like do one lesson or earn a certain amount of XP.
Yeah.
And it like gives you a growth mindset as well, because it like gives you back the mistakes that you've done, so you can like redo it and then you can learn from it. And also like the gratification of gold or whatever it gives you, right?
Yeah. And it like breaks it up into bite-sized pieces.
So yeah, I think Duolingo does a really good job with the model of like lifelong learning.
Yeah.
But not to like promote Duolingo or anything.
Yeah. But I think also that kind of reminds me, like, not only are you learning a new language then, but even if you're not becoming fluent, it opens your mind to a bunch of new possibilities that you can learn about. Like, if you're learning Italian, suddenly you might want to learn more about Italy. You want to learn about their cuisine. You want to learn about their culture. And, you know, it just goes and goes from there. Maybe now you want to travel to Italy, you know? It's something that can domino into a bunch of other different opportunities. So when you're a kid, I feel like there are a couple ways that you start learning. Educational programs. I remember doing a bunch of workbooks. Social situations.
Yeah, and kind of tying back to the lifelong learning, I think it's important to encourage kids to be lifelong learning and kind of like start them early. And I think some of the ways to do that is like encouraging curiosity, exploration, and like problem solving, and also getting them excited about what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And also leading by example. Like I've heard a lot of stories where the children are reading instead of like watching TV or something else, because the parents are also reading. Like read in front of them, read with them, kind of leading them by example.
Yeah.
And then also like focusing on experiences rather than the material items. Because material items are important too, but I feel like a lot of times, especially when you're younger, you learn a lot more by experiencing things.
Yeah. I feel like material versus like experience is kind of that play between like learning in the classroom and then implementing that. So yeah, like I like one thing that came to mind is giving your kid like a globe.
Yeah.
So they start like getting curious about the world,
Yeah.
and then they like see an atlas and they're like, ooh, cool maps, and then they want to go explore outside.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then another way, I think what my parents did is like choosing educational material when possible. So like they would still let me watch TV and like turn the TV on, but they made the conscious choice to turn on like a kid-friendly documentary, whether it be about like pandas or, you know, or a show from like an educational broadcast show. And I think that a lot of children's shows are educational too, like for that purpose. So
yeah, especially I feel like these days, because of, you know, kids having more access to iPads and things like that,
Mhm.
it can be very easy to access things that seem kid-friendly at first, but then they don't really have any educational purpose.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it also gives you a lot of access to like YouTube channels. I think a really big YouTube channel now is this channel called Miss Rachel. It's like
Yeah.
a language learning.
Especially for like really, really little children.
Yeah. So it can even start from like the tiniest age. I remember when we were kids, we got like the National Geographic Kids magazines,
Mhm.
which is also I think a cool way to like expand your horizons and like learn about the world. But then also as you become an adult and like you mature, then you kind of move on to the National Geographic magazines,
Mhm.
not kids versions.
Yeah.
And it's like just a cool transition and something you can take on for a long part of your life as well.
Yeah. And because I feel like I watched like certain animal documentaries when I was littler for children, and now I'm still interested in like the BBC Earth like animal
Yeah.
documentaries. Yeah.
I know it's interesting to see like what sticks with you and
Mhm.
what doesn't.
Yeah.
But when you're older, especially nowadays, social media is a huge part of learning. People
Mhm.
get a lot of information from TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc.
Yeah. The Pew Research Center has a study, and the statistics show how on every social media platform ranging from X to LinkedIn, there has been an increase on how many people regularly get their information from social media in the past 4 years. And the study also says that the main reason why people get their information through social media is because of convenience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But with social media, you have to be really careful because there are a lot of good ways to learn, and especially on TikTok, like there are a lot of how-to videos and things like that, YouTube. But at the same time, kind of like I mentioned earlier in the episode, there's a lot of fear-mongering or just the spread of misinformation. It can be on purpose, but it also can't. It might not be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the misinformation part is a huge part.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think with that, and then also with scrolling the news, you have to figure out what is real and what is fake. But in some sense, that can be good because it makes you, it really forces you, if you care about the issue and you want to make sure that you're getting the right information, it forces you to look at a bunch of different viewpoints and then figure out also where you stand on it.
Yeah.
Which I think is especially true with politics, for example. That's a very, very polarized field, regardless of where you stand on it. And so, especially nowadays, it's a big thing to look at a couple different sources and try to see beyond what is being told to you so that you can understand where you really stand on an issue rather than just hearing what people tell you and then going with it.
Yeah, and I think also for scrolling the news, it really makes you put on the critical thinking cap on, because sometimes the words and the concepts are a lot harder than the news that you would encounter on social media or on like ads.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, that actually raises a good point because on social media, like I mentioned, it's not always intentional that there's a spread of misinformation or whatever, but it might just be because on social media, accounts, even if they are informational, they're trying to get information across to a wide range of people. They're trying to appeal to a large audience, some of who may be very educated on the topic, but also people who might know nothing about it. And so there is a lot of sense in kind of simplifying a topic on social media. But then when you see something that might catch your eye and you're like, wow, that's crazy, or you're interested in it, then I think it's very important to do that deeper research.
Yeah.
And just get educated.
Like double check the information.
But it can also be a good way to figure out what you're interested in. Like, I feel like you find a couple different hobbies that you could be interested in through social media. So
Yeah.
it has
Gateway.
it has its ups and its downs.
For sure.
Another way, like we mentioned, is experimenting. And this actually made me think it's really just like your podcast.
Yeah.
For us, when we started the podcast, we didn't have any experience podcasting for one. So no equipment experience. I had very, very basic editing experience. The list goes on really. We kind of dove in head first.
Yeah, we did.
But as we, 2 seasons, like at the beginning of season 1, our podcast setup looked completely different.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Our episodes were a little more free-willed, I'd say. But as we went on, we learned what works best for the format of our episodes. We learned what we want to talk about, and we've gone from there.
Yeah.
And I think that also goes into talking with others. That's also a great way to learn. And that also has been our podcast because I think I've said this before too, but in preparing for these episodes, Lizzie and I both learn a lot about these topics because obviously we have our own basic life experiences and our personal anecdotes, but then to like take a research perspective to all of these different topics and actually intentionally look at a couple different viewpoints and figure out what viewpoints on lifelong learning, for example, are, or any of the other topics we talked about in our podcast. That just sheds a whole new light, and it makes us, I think, interested in these topics as well. And we take the lessons that we learn, that we give to you, and we take them into our own life.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a whole big learning society.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Small Step Society, Lifelong Learning Society.
True. Yeah. Learning.
Mm-hmm.
Another way, videos. Not just Small Step Society this time.
Yes.
I remember a huge thing in my life growing up was Brain Pop. Don't really know if they make new videos nowadays, actually.
Yeah, I don't know.
But if anyone remembers Tim and Moby,
yes,
the robot.
Yes. Yeah, and like Amoeba Sisters, Crash Courses.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like those are more geared towards like middle school, high school. But even now for like hard biochemistry concepts, I learned glycolysis through videos like on YouTube by this like teacher named Ninja Nerd. So I feel like we still use videos to learn even at like college level.
Yeah. That reminds me, so when it comes to learning, another thing that's important is to figure out what learning style is best for you. And this is maybe more related to educational things, but I personally don't feel like I learn great from videos, and so I prefer to just read the material, or if I'm like watching a video, I have to take notes so I can see it written down.
Yeah.
But I think that's important to keep in mind because especially when you're trying to have a growth mindset, sometimes you might just not be picking up the skill or learning something because you're just not learning in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
So that's also a bit of a learning curve in itself.
Yeah, just to find which style works best.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we wrap up this episode, and also as the new year rolls around, we would like to nudge you to keep lifelong learning in mind when you think about New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, you can start the new year with one new thing that you want to learn, and then maybe in the following years you keep adding to your repertoire, and every year you pick up a new skill.
Yeah.
Learn something new. Figure out what you're passionate about.
Yes, exactly. So as always, we're going to end the episode with a quote. This is by Henry Ford, and it goes like this. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young.
We are here to say that this is the final episode of Small Step Society. We wanted to thank you for a great 2 seasons, and we learned a lot throughout each episode from season 1 to season 2. And we hope you guys were able to take something from our episodes as well.
Yeah, we definitely grew a lot as individuals from when we first started about a year and a half ago. So we can't thank those who listened to us and joined us on this journey enough. So as we sign off, we wish you the brightest of days and sweetest of lives. But
that's all we have.
Yeah.
As always, you can listen to our past episodes from season 1 and season 2 on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can find podcasts except for You Can't. You can also watch us on YouTube. And if you ever want to stay following along, because we do have a few more tricks up our sleeves,
yes,
you can do so at Instagram at Small Step Society Pod. And with that,
I'm Lizzie.
And I'm Brenda.
And we were Small Step Society. Thank you for tuning in for 2 seasons.
Was that good?
I think so. It was a good season.
Yeah, good 2 seasons.
Yeah.